Let's get this straight. They didn't think you had it in you. The silence, they thought it was temporary. The distance, they assumed it was a bluff. They believed you'd break first, that you'd come crawling back with explanations, apologies, and let's talk. But you didn't. You went quiet, cold, focused, and that shook something deep inside them. Because here's what most people don't understand about avoidance. They run from closeness, but they crave control. And when you disappear without warning, they lose both. No contact isn't revenge, it's resurrection. You're not ignoring them, you're reintroducing yourself to the person they underestimated. See, avoidant exes operate on a silent assumption. You'll always be there, always one message away, always emotionally available, always waiting, just in case they change their mind. So when your phone stops buzzing, when your energy exits the room, when they finally feel the weight of your absence, it's not peace they feel, it's panic. According to research from Dr. Amir Levine, author of Attached, people with avoidant attachment often convince themselves they don't need anyone. But neuroscience disagrees. Even avoidants, especially avoidants, are wired for connection. They just fear it. So when you stop reaching out, when you give them what they say they wanted, space, they're forced to confront the emptiness they were using you to avoid. And that quiet, it becomes deafening. Marcus Aurelius said it best. The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. And when you go no contact, they finally sit with thoughts they've dodged for years. They start wondering, why haven't they messaged? Did they meet someone else? Did they stop caring this fast? And here's where it burns. You were never the problem. They just never expected to miss you like this, because in their mind, you were always available, until you weren't. They start wondering, why haven't they messaged? Did they meet someone else? Did they stop caring this fast? And here's where it burns. You were never the problem. They just never expected to miss you like this, because in their mind, you were always available, until you weren't. No contact doesn't just create silence, it creates a mirror. And what they see staring back: regret, missed chances, a version of themselves they can't lie to anymore. Type this in the comments right now. I pulled back. They unraveled. Because that's exactly what happens when you choose power over chasing. But don't get it twisted. This isn't about getting them back. This is about getting you back. It's about proving to yourself that you don't need breadcrumbs, half-truths, or emotional yo-yos to feel worthy. When you go no contact, you aren't punishing them. You're protecting you, protecting your peace, protecting your standards, and slowly they start to feel it. The shift, the weight of your absence, the consequences of their avoidance. And trust me, avoidants hate consequences. They'll pretend not to care. They'll act unbothered. They'll post stories, stay busy, talk to someone new. But behind that false front is a mind racing with questions they'll never admit out loud. Did I mess this up? Was that my last shot? Why does their silence hurt more than the arguments? Because here's the secret. Avoidants don't process pain during the breakup. They process it when the supply runs out. And when you become unavailable, that's when the emotional storm begins. Seneca once said, "Sometimes even to live is an act of courage." You stepping into silence, that is courage. Because most people panic when they feel abandoned. You took that pain and turned it into power. You didn't beg. You didn't chase. You held the line. Seneca once said, Sometimes even to live is an act of courage. You stepping into silence, that is courage. Because most people panic when they feel abandoned. You took that pain and turned it into power. You didn't beg. You didn't chase. You held the line. And now, the same person who said, "I need space," is suffocating in the one you left behind. You see, when you go no contact, you're not just giving them space. You're reclaiming your identity. The one you compromised for connection, the one you silenced to avoid conflict, the one that finally said, "Enough." And in that stillness, a strange thing happens. They remember your voice. They scroll through old messages. They replay memories you tried to move past. But you've entered a new phase, where peace speaks louder than presence. Let me be clear. Their silence after your silence isn't strength, it's confusion. They're not doing well without you. They're calculating, observing, hoping for a crack in your resolve. But this time, there is none. Because silence isn't a weakness, it's a boundary. And it's one they never thought you'd be strong enough to enforce. But here you are, solid, silent, sovereign. Let me be clear. Their silence after your silence isn't strength, it's confusion. They're not doing well without you. They're calculating, observing, hoping for a crack in your resolve. But this time, there is none. Because silence isn't a weakness, it's a boundary. And it's one they never thought you'd be strong enough to enforce. But here you are, solid, silent, sovereign. So here's the promise I'll make to you. If you watch this video to the end, you'll no longer feel guilty for walking away from people who needed to lose you to wake up. You'll understand exactly why your avoidant ex spirals in the silence, and you'll never question your value again. If you're ready to stop chasing and start healing, do one thing. Like this video, subscribe, share this with someone who's staying strong. Join our channel membership to help us keep making content like this. And, in the comments, claim this with me. My silence is sacred. Say it, type it, breathe it, because your energy is no longer free. And they're just now realizing the cost. Let's dive in. Stay focused. Key point 1. The illusion of control breaks. First, avoidants rely on one thing to feel safe in relationships: control over closeness. They don't like too much of it, and they don't like too little. They want connection on their terms. They crave emotional safety but run from emotional exposure. So when you were always available, texting back, checking in, offering support, they felt in control. They knew where you stood. They knew you cared. And more importantly, they knew they could take their time. But the second you stopped showing up, the second you didn't reply within minutes, the second your energy detached and your presence faded, that illusion shattered. Because what no one tells you is this: avoidants don't fear rejection. They fear losing their grip. They fear not being the one who gets to choose when connection happens. When you go no contact, you interrupt that entire dynamic. Suddenly, they're not calling the shots. You are. And that terrifies them in ways they'll never say out loud. They may not text. They may not call. But trust this, they feel it. They feel the shift in energy. They feel the imbalance they never saw coming. And whether they admit it or not, they start to spiral in silence. Because now you're no longer predictable. And if they can't predict you, they can't control the outcome. This is the moment their mask starts to slip. where the calm exterior they show, the world starts to crack behind closed doors. Because deep down, they know you're not reacting anymore, you're responding. And that subtle shift is more threatening than any fight ever was. A key point 2, the withdrawal they never expected. Let's be brutally honest. Avoidant exes expect you to chase. They don't say it, they don't ask for it, but they count on it, because your emotional pursuit validated their worth without requiring them to be emotionally available. They got the benefits of being desired while keeping their distance. So when you pull away, fully, cleanly, and without a dramatic exit, they're caught off guard. Not because they miss the relationship, but because they miss the version of you who was always there, even when they weren't showing up fully. They expected a reaction. They expected closure. They expected a long paragraph explaining how much you loved them, how much it hurt, and why you were leaving. But what did you give them instead? Nothing. Just silence. That's the move they weren't ready for. Because now, there's no emotional thread for them to tug on, no conflict to lean into, no chase to reject. Just space. Still, quiet, unreadable space. And that's where avoidants start to spiral, because they can't regulate what they can't interpret. They start wondering what's going on with you. They check your social media more than they admit. They overanalyze your last words, your last glance, your last message. They might even convince themselves you're the avoidant one now. That's how deep the discomfort goes. Why? Because in their world, pulling back was always their role. They never imagined the script could flip. But now, you're the one withdrawing. You're the one who's calm, grounded, unfazed. And here's the part they'll never say out loud. They don't miss who you were. They miss the version of themselves they could be when you needed them. Now, without that dynamic, they feel exposed, disarmed, and deeply, irrationally unsettled. Key point 3. The rise of cognitive dissonance. Here's where it gets psychologically brutal. When you go no contact, your avoidant ex is forced to sit in cognitive dissonance, a mental state where two beliefs violently collide. On one hand, they told themselves they didn't need you. They said, "This is better." They convinced their friends, "We just weren't right for each other." They believed pulling away made them strong, independent, free. But on the other hand, they're not okay. They're confused by their own emotional turbulence. They're haunted by your calm, steady silence. They expected relief, and instead, they're feeling loss, not just of you, but of the control and validation your presence used to give them. And that doesn't match the story they told themselves about why they left. Now their thoughts become war zones. Why do I care they haven't messaged? If I wanted space, why does their silence feel like abandonment? If I'm the one who ended this, why do I feel rejected? See, most people think avoidants feel nothing. Wrong. They just delay their emotional processing. They bury it under routines, distractions, and half-hearted rebounds. But when all of that wears off, when the high of freedom fades, what's left? Regret, curiosity, restlessness. And none of it makes sense to them because their identity depends on detachment. They're not built to admit they're hurting, especially not over someone they pushed away. Your silence is no longer just silence. It's a contradiction to their entire belief system. And as the dissonance builds, they either break through and reflect, or double down and pretend they're fine while slowly unraveling behind closed doors. This is where transformation starts, but only for the avoidants willing to stop lying to themselves. Key point 4. The guilt they'll never say out loud. This is the part they'll never post on their stories, the part they'll never tell their friends, the part they'll never ever admit to you. The guilt. Not just for how things ended, but for how much effort you gave, and how little they gave back. See, guilt doesn't show up right away for avoidance. It sneaks in slowly, like smoke through a crack in the door. At first it's a twinge, then it's a pattern, then it's an echo they can't shut out. Because now they remember every time you tried, every time you softened your needs to make them feel safe, every time you showed up, even when you were hurting. And most painfully, every time they pulled away without explanation. And here's where the shame creeps in. Because whether they want to admit it or not, they knew. They knew you were giving more. They knew you were trying to hold the relationship together. They knew you were sacrificing your peace for proximity. And now that you've gone silent, the mirror is up. And it's not just you they miss, it's their own self-respect they lost when they avoided accountability. They tell themselves, they were too much. They wanted too much. They were too emotional. But deep down, they know. You weren't too much. They were just too unavailable to meet you where you were. And your silence proves it. This is why they can't scroll past your page without stopping. Why they keep tabs on your updates, even when they never react. Because now they see it. You didn't just walk away. You walked away with your dignity. And that's a kind of power that haunts avoidance. You didn't scream, you didn't argue, you didn't try to change them. You just left. And when guilt meets silence, it creates one thing they never prepared for: consequences. Type this in the comments if you feel this in your soul. They felt nothing when I gave everything. Now they feel everything in my silence. That's the secret mantra, not just a statement, but a line in the sand. Because you didn't go silent to be petty. You went silent to protect your peace. And now they finally understand what it cost them. A key point 5. The slow realization that they can't replace you. At first, they tried to distract themselves. A rebound here, a hookup there, flirting, posting, pretending. They weren't trying to heal, they were trying to numb. But here's the thing, no one warns them about. You can't replace someone who showed up for you emotionally, when you weren't even showing up for yourself. See, avoidants often operate off the illusion of abundance. They think they'll feel better once they have space. They think they'll meet someone else who doesn't ask for too much. Someone easier, less emotional, less attached. So they try. They go back out there. They text someone new. They laugh, they drink, they post. But deep down, it's off. Because it's not you. And no matter how hard they try to copy-paste a new connection, they quickly learn. It's not about replacing you. It's about realizing they can't. They remember how you listened, even when they barely spoke. How you gave space, but never withheld love. How you stayed, even when it was hard. And now that they're alone with their ego, it's not comforting anymore, it's crushing. Because here's the hard truth. They didn't leave because you weren't enough. They left because they thought they had time to come back. But silence teaches the one lesson no avoidant wants to learn. People grow tired. People outgrow patterns. People move on. And the scariest realization of all? You didn't just walk away. You evolved. Without them, beyond them, through the very silence they used to weaponize. You're not chasing anymore. You're not available for breadcrumbs. You're not here to make their healing easier. And that realization hits like a punch to the chest, slow, sharp, and permanent. Key point 6, the fear of your emotional detachment. Here's where everything shifts. They thought your silence was temporary, that it was a strategy, that eventually your emotions would catch up to you, that you'd relapse into contact, even just to check in. But you didn't. You didn't flinch. You didn't reach. You didn't orbit them like you used to. And that's when fear sets in. Not fear of losing you physically, fear of losing you emotionally. Because for the first time, it's not that you're just gone. It's that your heart isn't waiting anymore. That's the moment they realize. This isn't detachment with resentment. This is indifference. And that, to an avoidant, is more threatening than any breakup could ever be. They could handle your love. They could handle your disappointment. They could even handle your anger, because it still meant you cared. But this new version of you, quiet, peaceful, unbothered, that's the version they never prepared for. Because if you're not reacting, you're no longer emotionally invested. And if you're not emotionally invested, they've lost their grip, not just on you, but on their relevance in your life. Now they're the one checking stories. They're the one wondering if they've been replaced. They're the one feeling the emotional imbalance they once relied on. And here's what's brutal. They know that if they reach out now, it won't hit the same. You're not the same. Your energy doesn't beg for connection anymore. It requires respect. Your detachment isn't cold. It's clean. It's the kind of quiet that says, I'm not angry, I just don't need access to chaos anymore. And that's what terrifies them the most. Because once someone becomes okay without you, they rarely look back. Key point 7, the ego collapse. That happens in private, they'll never show it. Not on their feed, not in front of friends, not even in the mirror. But the collapse is happening, quietly, painfully, invisibly. Because ego isn't just confidence. For avoidance, it's a shield. A mask they've worn for years to avoid vulnerability. It tells them they're okay alone, that they don't need love, that they're better off without complicated emotions. But your silence, it doesn't attack their ego, it starves it. There's no attention to feed off, no validation to secretly drink from, no emotional tether to remind them they still matter in your world. So the mask starts slipping. They start comparing everyone new to you, and no one matches. They start imagining conversations that will never happen. They start checking your status with a knot in their stomach they can't explain. Because the attention they once ran from has become the one thing they now crave. That's when their ego begins to panic. They want to reach out, but they don't want to look weak. They want to test the waters, but they fear rejection. They want to reconnect, but they don't know how to face what they broke. And the worst part, they now realize something you already knew. You were the one person who saw past their armor and chose them anyway. And they pushed that away. Now, they're stuck between silence and shame. Reaching out would mean admitting they were wrong. Staying silent means living with the possibility that you've moved on. And that ego, the one that told them they'd be fine without you, it's cracking under the weight of what they lost. They may never tell you what's happening. They may never send that message. But trust this. Avoidants don't forget the ones who walked away quietly and never looked back. So now you know. The silence they once wanted, now it haunts them. The space they begged for, now it swallows them. And the version of you they thought they could return to at any time, gone, evolved, unavailable. That's what no contact does. It doesn't just protect your peace. It exposes everything they were avoiding in themselves. But before you go, I want to leave you with this truth. Sometimes your absence is the only thing loud enough to teach them what your presence truly meant. And if they're smart enough to reflect, they'll regret pushing away someone who would have stayed, if only they had shown up. If this video hit home, don't just sit with it, like it. Subscribe if you're reclaiming your power. Join our channel membership to support deeper content like this. And comment this mantra right now. My energy is earned, not expected. Say it. Type it. Let them feel it in your silence. And here's what's coming next. They didn't expect your distance. But the second you stopped reaching out, your avoidant ex started to feel something they couldn't control. Curiosity, panic, obsession. We're breaking it all down in the next video. The second you stop reaching out, your avoidant ex will start to. It's not just about what happens when you let go. It's about the storm that brews inside them once they realize. You're not coming back. Stick around. The truth is only getting deeper. And silence is just the beginning.